Today we are going to do a practice test. We are going to have a test on Friday for A days and be on Monday for B days. Here's the deal. Normally when we do a big test like this, we actually build the test and then we use that test, change the numbers and some of the questions around a little bit so that you've got a really good study guide, and then we give you that as a study guide. Today we did it different. The book actually has the review. So on page 254 in your book, you can go ahead and turn to that. I would actually go ahead and recommend tearing that one out. You'll notice that on page 254 itself, that is the side that has the part that's on the board here. 253 is going to be what you're going to do if you finish 254, but our test is going to be on this page. So here's your focus for today. You're going to work on number 7 through 11. Realize there are multiple parts to most of these questions. So that's where we're going to get enough points to make this a test. What is the biggest difference between a quiz and a test? Literally the number of points. Quizzes are normally 10 or 20 points. Tests are usually 50. I haven't talked to Ms. McShann exactly yet about how we're breaking this one down, but my goal is to make this a 50-point test, meaning this is going to be a major portion of your grade for this quarter. So you need to be able to do well. Question? There's not a retest, but I'll talk to you individually about test corrections. Okay? So here's the deal. I'm going to give you guys most of the period to work on this because we want you to be able to do the test, but then I'm going to show you all of the answers. So last class I gave myself 15 minutes. It wasn't quite enough. So I'm leaving myself 20 minutes to do this. So you guys have 50 minutes until 10 o'clock to do as much of this as you can. You are going to need a separate piece of paper because there's a lot that has to happen, especially as you do number 11. You'll actually find out when you get down to number 11, you're doing 3 different tables, 3 different graphs. So this is actually going to be a majority of your test is going to be that one test question. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and set you guys free for now. Go ahead and get to work. You can work with your table, and then we'll go over the answers at the end of class. Guys, recording starting. So I want you to write down all of the answers because this is your study guide. Again, the test is going to have different numbers. It may have a slightly different take on the question, but all of these are going to be exactly like you're going to see on the test on Friday. So if you understand how to do these problems, you should do really well on the test. So I do want you to write these down so that you can study them. So it should be the easiest homework grade of the year because I'm giving you all the answers. All you got to do is write them. Go ahead. Okay, starting on number 7. A sports drink calls for 7 scoops for every gallon of water. Describe how you can change either the number of scoops or the amount of water to give the drink a stronger flavor. So that's really the key. Ashlyn, please stop talking. You are. But let's go ahead and go through this. Key is stronger flavor. So what's going to make the flavor stronger? Michael?
Giving the drink more scoops.
Or?
Drink
Less water. So I can add more scoops or less water to make it stronger. Okay, so the test question may be, how do I make it weaker? Or it may be, instead of 7 scoops, it may say 8 scoops for every half gallon of water. So something in the question will change, but it's going to talk about sports drinks, and it's going to ask you to describe something about them, okay? Everybody understand the concept? So that's how your practice test relates to your real test. Okay, of the 75 students at Hillbrook who play a spring sport, 30 run track, 25 play baseball, 20 play lacrosse. Write the ratios and determine whether a part-to-part or part-to-whole relationship exists. So there's 2 different parts we're doing to this. We're writing it and determining part-to-part or part-to-whole. So we're first one, we're going track to baseball. So track is 30 track to 25 baseball. Can I simplify that?
Yes.
Yes. So I can divide those by 5. That gives me 6 track to 5 baseball. Which type of ratio is that?
Part to part ratio.
Part to part. Have I now answered all parts of this question? Okay. Second one, now I'm doing track to total. So track was 30 track to 75 total. Can I simplify that?
Yes.
Yes, by
15.
by 15. If you didn't see the 15, you can do 5 and then 3. But make sure you're simplifying them down. So that's going to give me 2 track to 5 total. Which type of ratio is that? Part to whole ratio. If I'm writing too fast, remember you can always watch the video later. Just make sure you're getting all these answers down, guys. Okay, Ellen can make 5 dresses with 45 yards of cloth. If Ellen has 72 yards of cloth, how many dresses can she make? So there's our question. So the way I personally would do this, I would actually just start with the ratio. And I would say, okay, well, I have 5 dresses and 45 yards. I can divide both of those. I'm going to use the magic box by 5 to get me 1 dress and 9 yards. Okay, so this is, to me, easier to go off of. So once I have my 1 dress to 9 yards, I know I have 72 yards. How do I go from 9 to 72? Times 8. So that gives me 8 dresses. So she can make 8 dresses. So I prefer proportional reasoning. The key on that, make sure you show your work, have your magic box. You have all of these written down, Samuel? Because Rubik's Cube is more important than doing well on the test? Okay. If Ella makes a dress for herself, how many yards of cloth will she need? Technically, I already answered that one when I broke it down here, right? So for 1 dress, she needs 9 yards. Okay? Any questions on anything so far? Okay. Last week, Cecilia built 7 birdhouses with 2 boards. Determine how many birdhouses she can build for each number of boards. So there's our task. So they've given me my basic ratio of 7 birdhouses and 2 boards. But I want to know, how do I get to 6 boards? So my magic box says, how do I go from 2 to 6? Times 3, which gives me 21 birdhouses. So if I just write 21 birdhouses, do I get full credit, Legend? Or do I need to show my work? How did you do it?
So I lined the numbers up. So you know ratio, I put 2 and 7 next to each other. So I wrote down 2 and I added 12. Then I added the number. Well, no, I did 2, 12, 6, then 7, 14, and 21.
So did you do a double number line?
Mr. Moore, I did it differently.
There's a lot of different ways. We've shown you many different ways. Does it say how I have to do it? No, it just says determine.
I did it. Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Oh, so you just did ratios.
why does it say board houses and not bird houses?
Because I got distracted.
Wow, Mr. Moore, bad English.
No, it's all Karina's fault. We blame her.
Finish the lines at the bottom.
Okay, so next one, I have 7 birdhouses and 2 boards. The only thing that changes is it's now 10 boards. So my magic box is going to change. How do I go 2 to 10? Times 5. So I do 7 times 5, and I get 35 birdhouses. So she can make 35 birdhouses.
Board houses.
I got it right that time, even with you trying to distract me, Aubrey.
I wanted it to work.
Okay, the next one. During an online typing test, Morgan typed 144 words in 2 minutes. Elizabeth typed 150 words in 3 minutes. And Ruth typed 65 words in 1 minute. So create a ratio table to show each girl's typing speed for 1 through 6 minutes. So we need to do 3 ratio tables because we need one for each girl, with my minute interval being everything from 1 to 6. Plot each set of equivalent ratios on a coordinate plane. We're going to use the circle for Morgan, square for Elizabeth, and triangle for Ruth. We're then going to draw 3 separate lines through the points that represent each ratio. And a question here, what do you notice? So we have a task and a question. And then who is the fastest? There's a question. Who is the slowest? And explain how you can tell by looking at the 3 lines in your grid. So we have kind of 3 parts on that. So you can see number 11 is actually going to be a majority of your test grade, right?
Yeah.
Because there is a ton that needs to be done for this one question. So let's start at the bottom. I'm going to go down. So we're going to start with the part of building the ratio tables. So I have 3 ratio tables that I need to build. Our first one was for Morgan. And in Morgan, we're comparing her words per minute. And I need 6 intervals. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll add one more, 6. And the info they gave me for Morgan was she does 144 in 2. So every one of these, they have to give me 1 entry. That 1 entry is where I'm going to start the rest of my table from. So in this case, I know I need to go 2 to 1, so I'm going to divide by 2. So 144 divided by 2 is going to give me 72. Then I personally prefer additive reasoning when it comes to the ratio tables that are set up like this, because it's easy. I know all I'm doing is going to now add 72. So that's going to give me 216. Add 72 is going to get me 288. And once I've shown my work twice in a ratio table like this, you don't have to show it anymore because now I can follow your reasoning. So I'm just going to add 72, gets me 250, 260, and then 332. Our next person was Elizabeth, so I'm just going to call her Liz. But we have the same basic information. I need words and minutes for 1 through 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For Elizabeth, they started us at 150 and 3. So I know this one's 150. Again, for me, it's always easiest to go back to 1. So for me, I'm going to go back to 1 here, divide by 3. Did I make a mistake, Karina?
Wait, what number is next to 332?
260? That's not right.
210. Yeah, it looks like 2. It looks like.
No, what did I do wrong?
No, you didn't do
That should be 360 and 432.
Yeah.
Thank you. So make that correction, guys. That's 360. That one's 432.
Was that on purpose?
No. That was just me going fast. So once I'm down, now I know I'm just adding 50 every time. So adding 50 gives me 200, 250, and 300. The last one that we have is Ruth. I remember that because that's actually my mom's name.
Wow, nice more. Way to show off on YouTube.
So we have words and minutes. And that goes 1 through 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Makes that one easy. And the info they gave on us was 65 words in 1 minute. So this is the easiest one to show my work. So I'm just adding 65. So that's 130. Add 65 gives me 195. Then 260, 325, and 390.
Mr. Mark,
Yes,
what is next to the silver lens?
5100. It's just going up by 50.
Why are you writing so small?
It's not really sloppy. I think, is my pen on a bigger one? No, it's the normal. It's just the color. The color does make it hard. Now, setting up my graph. This is the last part on this one. I would put the bottom as my minutes. I would put the side as the number of words. One of the hard parts in setting up a graph is always figuring out what your intervals are. Question, Gabrielle? Miss Ruth?
Yeah, I missed Ruth.
Don't forget, guys, you can always go back and watch the video later as well. So, one thing you need to do, we're always going to try to start at origin, so that's at 0. And I want to use as much of the graph as I can to display my data. Because the more graph I can use, the more accurate my pictures are going to be. Meaning, when I look across the bottom, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. So I have 24, 25 intervals. So I could do every 4 because I only need to get to 6, right? So every 4 is where I'm going to put my number. So that'll be 1, 2, 4 is 2, 2, 4 is 3, is 4, is 5, is 6. Okay? Now I got to figure out the intervals on going up. So if I look at the words, the highest number of words I have is 432. So I want to try to make it as small as I can, but I want to get all 432 in. So if I look up the side, I still have a good number of intervals. So I think if I go about every 25, I should be okay. So I'm going to go 100, 1, 2, 3, 4, 200, 1, 2, 3, 4, 300, 1, 2, 3, 4, 400, and 1, 2, 3, 4, we get all the way up to 500 words. So I'll be able to get my 432 in there. Everybody tracking so far? Even though it's fast, because we're down to about 3 minutes. Okay, so I'm using dots for Morgana, or Morgan. I'm using squares for Elizabeth and triangles for Ruth. Okay, so there's my key. So I know what each table is looking at. Now the last part is I just have to plot the numbers. So at 1 it's 72. So for her the dot is going to be just below the 75. At 2 it's 144. So it's going to be just below the 150, but a little more below than the first one was. The best one to plot is actually well, actually that was not that great either. But 5 and 360. Bottom line on this is 216. At 4, it's 288, so just above the 275. 4, 275, 288. 5 was the 360. So 5, 350, just past that. Now you guys have the advantage, something's wrong here. The 144 is way off. 144 is down here. What? Okay, and the 2 is over here. So the bottom line is once you've plotted them, they should all line up perfectly with a straight edge. Don't forget to put the arrow at the end. You're going to do the same thing with the other 2 graphs. So Liz is going to be easier because she's right on the intervals. So I put a square here, 100, square here, 150, square here. So plot all of those points. Again, use a straight edge. You're going to go all the way through these. And then your last ones, 1 at 65, so she's going to be kind of in between. So Ruth will be somewhere in here. 2 and 130, so just past the 125. That's supposed to be a triangle, but the pen's not working well. 3 and 195, so it's almost to the 200 line. So I'm only doing the first 3 again. For your graphs, make sure you're plotting all of them, but then use your line to go through. Put the arrows at the end. Don't forget your last question. How do I know which one is highest? The circle. So Morgan did the best, and Liz did the worst. Okay, so my last question. Morgan was fastest because her line was highest. And Elizabeth was worst, hers was lowest. So what's slowest? Because her line was lowest. So highly recommend watching the video to make sure you've got all these answers down. And I'll add these other points in. Now that I know I've got a couple extra minutes, I just want to make sure we had the time to get all those. Questions on the test. Bring your practice test on Friday. I will grade it on Friday or Monday if you're a B day. I will grade it, yes. That's his homework, is it not?
No.
So you need to have it so that I can grade it.
I put them like that.
That's fine. Although you had to have all entries 1 through 6. You don't have all your entries on those 2 tables.
And then I did this. I don't think I understood what it was saying.
Yeah, you did. Well, because you didn't plot to 6 minutes. Okay? Good luck, guys. Make sure you practice for the test.